ready for another episode.
We're doing it. This is
doing
great.
it,
We're having fun.
And we're meeting great people doing great things,
Yeah.
you know?
Uh-huh. And this episode is I'm going to say this, they're all really important, but this one is a really important one, and we're going to be working with the clinic here and shining a light on the immigration clinic right here in Brentwood and the work that they're doing. Sister Janet, Kinney, this is a topic that is so misunderstood.
Yes.
And I'm going to be very outward here in saying that I'm not going to pretend like I am an expert on this. That's why we're going to very, very easily hand it off to the clinic and let them tell us more. Right. But what I have gathered and what I have learned has blown my mind with regards to what the world, the media says about people seeking asylum. It is not what we think it is.
Right. Yeah. Yeah. And you're talking about people leaving their homeland with little to nothing. Usually just what they have on their back, what they can carry, and seeking a better life for their family, especially their children. And here it's so important that we have this clinic here in Brentwood, which is somewhat central of Long Island, which the transportation system is so different than what you have in the boroughs of the city. Buses don't run as regularly. There's no subway system. So any of these immigrants who are finding their way in Brentwood, which is Suffolk County, or Nassau, we're trying to get into the new sanctuary clinic that was in Lower Manhattan. And it was really it was a challenge.
So even outside of like the help that the clinic does with paperwork and all these different aspects, just geographically having a clinic here is a huge breakthrough in this work.
Exactly.
Which is powerful.
Right. Having people come, to a location that is more accessible than having to trace into the city, and then having people welcome you. They are friends, and that's a breakthrough in itself, to be considered a friend, that other friends want to help you get acclimated and work with you to make sure that all of your I's are dotted and your T's are crossed, so that when you're putting forth your application for asylum, it's looked at and not dismissed.
Yeah, and I think in today's culture and political climate, and this isn't a political show, we're not looking to start to pit sides against each other. In fact, I think with this topic, both sides don't know what to do because both have contradicted each other. I won't go into too much detail about that, but many people use this topic to say, I'm going to do what that person didn't do, or I'm going to do this, and they both end up doing the same thing, just different language. But asylum seeking is legal, and that's a really important thing. And I think a lot of times, a politician can get to the podium and say, we're not going to let people in the country that shouldn't be here, this and that. This is very legal, very necessary, and these are families that are running away from pain, and they don't want to. And now put yourself in that situation, and I'm a parent, and imagine having to go to the city to try to get this all situated, but you also got to work. You got to do all these things. Like, I don't want to go to the city on a day when I have off. if I have to go in for something it's a lot of work. And now imagine having all this other stuff. It's daunting.
Yeah, and it's kind of mind-boggling that, here we are, the United States of America is a country that was established by immigrants. Those fleeing the persecution of the empire, imperialism. And yet, now that we're somewhat settled and established, we're having a hard time welcoming people. I mean, read the base of the Statue of Liberty, right? There's the welcome. Bring me your tired, your poor, your huddled masses. It's not saying, well, from this country or that country. It's bring them. You find that many of the immigrants are moving across borders, man-made, imaginary borders, because they need safety and security.
Yeah, and the people that are coming across the borders too are often mothers and children. Too. I think that's another part that's lost in this is that a lot of this is a mother and child. Which, hey, I don't know, but there's a gospel story about that, about a mom and a child and
I think a
lowly father.
They were threatened and they had to go to Egypt, and they went to Egypt because they blended in with the people, right? So we do find it in our salvation history, right? That's all. It's there. And it has been there for a long time, but these women and children, for the most part, but whole families too, they're seeking safety. I mean, I imagine, like, what parent would, just send their child across a bridge while they went down and tried to cross the river, and then somehow hope to reunite, if they didn't, were so concerned with their safety.
Yeah.
But I think, and we know that evil does exist in the world, mean-spiritedness exists in the world, and that's why I think, the spirituality that we ground ourselves in our relationship with God, helps to break through that and to say is, all are welcome. Everyone is a child of God.
Yeah.
And
I think, too, for those that could be watching this that are maybe a little critical, and I hope you are, because that's how we all stretch and we all learn, is when we have different voices and different ideas watching. But for those that might be thinking there, yeah, well, if everyone's just trying to come into the States, the bad seeds, the bad apples, they've already been coming in here doing things. I mean, we have drugs in this country.
Yeah.
And those are not the folks that are seeking asylum.
Right.
The people who are waiting on lines, who are going to these meetings, who are trying to figure out this paperwork, are people who want to work here and want to be here.
Mm-hmm.
And that's why it's important to say asylum seeking is legal. It's very important work. Yes. It's not illegal immigration. It's not this whole other thing that politicians use. And so we're going to throw it over here to the immigration clinic and hopefully be able to piece together a little bit about what is happening, what's going on. And then there's a lot of opportunities to get involved too. So if you're watching this and you think, oh, I want to help, I want to volunteer, the clinic has a lot of great ways for volunteers to jump in. So
tremendous numbers of volunteers, good people giving of their time. Yeah, it's beautiful.
Translators, readers, people just type things up. There's a lot of work that goes into this. So let's throw it over there to that footage and then
let's do it. Yeah,
good stuff.
Good.
Hello, everyone. Welcome. We are here at the Immigration Clinic, Long Island Immigration Clinic here at the CSJ Brentwood campus. And I'm sitting down with Sister Janet Kinney, director of this wonderful clinic. How are you?
I'm very good. Good
Wonderful.
Day.
Yeah, great to be here. This is so exciting to be in this space here. We are in the large meeting room. This is where a lot of the organizing and efforts happen, right?
Exactly. This is the main meeting place for our immigrant friends where we help them through their asylum applications.
Yeah, wonderful. It's a special place here, and you can really feel that. I've been able to be over here a few times for other events, and just wonderful work that's happening. And so we wanted to have you on here because the whole purpose of this show, Breakthrough, is to engage spirituality and justice and to help people understand how they can go about in their lives knowing about these issues. And this is an issue, asylum seeking, that I think is so, it's confusing. And we don't know what to look at, the politics that get involved in it. People are being fed, I hate to use this term, but misinformation and all this stuff. And so kind of want to go at this from two angles with you, the spiritual side and the justice side, of course. But how this started here through the charism of the sisters and what that call was, and then how people outside of these walls can get involved spiritually and legitimately, physically.
Sure.
So how did it get started? How did you end up here?
Okay, so large unmet need here on Long Island, no surprise. And the sisters, really since our inception as a congregation, always had worked with immigrant populations, particularly in our schools, but then in our local neighborhoods. So helping the dear neighbor who has been coming from another country has been intrinsic to us. But in more recent years, we've noticed, the great need for persons coming across the border, trying to help them with their asylum applications. And there was nothing out here on Long Island that could help the individual who didn't have the wherewithal to hire their own attorney. But there were programs like this in the city. So the sisters were bringing individuals into the city to partake of these.
How recent was this?
This was going up to 2016, 2017, through about 19. This was happening. Wow. So we were speaking together, in our justice meetings and started to muse about, well, what if we could think about replicating something like that out here?
Yeah.
And that's really where the idea really germinated. We called up a bunch of other partners on Long Island that we knew about and said, what do you think about this? How about, trying to band together to create a solution out here? And that's exactly what we did. It got incubated during the pandemic. Wonderful time to do it.
Wow.
There were lots and lots of Zoom calls. And over the course of 2 years, we put the structure together and really opened up officially to start our clinic sessions just a little over a year and a half ago.
And this note here, unmet needs, is so appropriate for everything that the sisters get involved in. I feel like is what is the need, what is the issue, and then go into that.
My, I would say, interjection with all of this was that I had made a couple of trips to the border, 2019, 20, so I got to see firsthand what people were experiencing, and I guess that was what really germinated in my heart. Gee, I want to get involved with this. So that's how although I've been part of the Justice Committee and certainly active on advocacy levels, that's how I got involved in this actual work of the clinic.
What surprised you that you saw there? Like, what was the thing? I know there's probably a lot of things, but what was something that you saw there that made you go, oh, this is what people are missing back home?
Oh, I think it's the human element of the story. Like, if people could see the experience, the lived experience of these individuals and families coming with the clothes on their back, journeying weeks, sometimes months, some of them because, they were interfaced with ICE, had ankle bracelets on them.
Wow.
When they came across the border, I want to say the inhumanity that was happening there. Their belts were taken away from them. Their shoelaces were taken away from them, like they were going to run away, I mean, they were coming here seeking asylum, But yet, the other humanizing aspect of it was how they quickly, like I volunteered time at Annunciation House, very quickly they created a community within themselves, helping one another while they were preparing for the next step of the journey. It was beautiful, beautiful to see. Very humble, simple people,
When now you said seeking asylum, and that's the work that you're doing here. This is so often misinformed, or we think that it's the same as immigration or this. So explain it to us here.
Sure.
What exactly is asylum?
Okay. Well, asylum is, and to be really clear, it is a human right. I think sometimes people say, oh, close off the borders, they don't belong here. Right. But in fact, it is a right. It is a right for every individual to seek asylum in another country. And basically, the bar for asylum is quite high because you have to prove in your asylum claim that you're fleeing for particular reasons, that you're fleeing because you've already been persecuted or you're in fear of persecution, that your government is not protecting you. You have to, and there are certain grounds that you have to prove. So are you being persecuted because of your religion, because of your political, leanings, which might not be the same as your current government? Are you part of a particular social group or a nationality? So that there are 5 protected grounds that people would apply through to say, in fact, that yes, this is why I'm seeking asylum. And this all has to be put in that quite lengthy application that they have to bring to court to prove their particular case.
Right, so there's paperwork. It's, I think it's...
This is not a 1, 2, 3 done deal. Yeah. Oh, I cross over the border and okay, here I am. It's a laborious process.
Yeah, let's look at that system a little bit. I mean, that's a huge aspect of it. But a family comes through, you encounter someone seeking asylum. Walk us through a little bit of that as much as you can.
Sure.
For us, yeah.
Sure. So they contact us. And we do an intake process, I'll just say, for the sake of simplicity here. We do an intake process, and they have to provide us with certain information. One being, we ask them to write out their story, because that's going to be the key part of their asylum application, telling that story. Once we have that information, we set them up with a trained group of volunteers who've been trained in the asylum process, and they'll meet with that team, typically 4 to 5 sessions they'll have here at the clinic. And part of that is going to be telling their story. And then in addition, we have volunteers that do country research. So if I'm coming from Honduras, well, what's the political situation in Honduras that I'm leaving? If I'm saying, I'm here because of my political opinion, well, what's going on there? Yeah. So that whole case has to be put together. And that application could be 50, 75 pages by the time it is completed. And that application then gets filed at Federal Immigration Court, which is in New York City. So we do that process, I say anywhere 4 to 6 weeks. That application gets filed, and then it's a waiting game until their case, gets put on the calendar and they get called before a judge. The vast majority of these folks don't have the wherewithal to hire their own attorney, so we then sit with them and try to guide them as much as we can on how to advocate for themselves. One of the things we do is we connect with another group of volunteers in the city who help with accompanying them to those court hearings, which is a wonderful thing, because then they're not alone. If I don't have an attorney, well, at least there's somebody sitting next to me. But they're there just as a support, which is so important, And we've successfully, 17 individuals have gone through the process, individuals and families, and some of them have been granted asylum, others have given other types of humanitarian relief, but bottom line, no one has been deported, and we're really thrilled with that. But, we've had over 1,000 inquiries since we started. 600 of them have been since January of this year. For services, and probably over half of them are asking specific for asylum. And we've served probably 150 with getting their applications, into the process, if you will. But some of them, they may not have a court hearing for a year, 18 months. So
and can they work on that?
Not necessarily. If once their application is filed, then after really 6 months, they can apply for work authorization. And only at that point can they get what we would call legal working papers. But even that, it could take them several months to file those. So you're hearing a lot right now with the great numbers of immigrants coming to New York City of the need, how do we expedite that process of people getting work authorization permits? Why can't they, once they file their asylum application, why can't they immediately file? And there was a time when that could happen, but 2 administrations back, they changed that. So we're hoping that that can be reversed again, because that would be a great boon for people being able to work, take care of their families, and really enter the labor force. And we know there is such a great need for these folks, in our local economies. And they want to work. They want to work. They want to work legally and pay their, their taxes and do what every other person in this country does,
I think of what you said there about how they have to keep retelling their story. I think that's the part that gets lost in this, is that we see someone get off a bus and we just put a number on them and say, no, not here. You got to remember, these folks have been through a lot. And then not only that, they have to keep re-traumatizing themselves going through this process to prove that they're worthy of this.
That's right.
And on the spiritual side, that's so painful.
Oh, it's very painful. And that's why a setting like that we have here, which is welcoming, it's beautiful, it's got a faith dimension. You see, this room was a former chapel of the Sisters of St. Joseph. This beautiful stained glass windows here, showing the journey of Jesus, through his journey. And, they come here, it's very comforting. They say, oh, it's so peaceful here. And, and that's what we're trying to do. Be that peaceful place, be that community. And it's wonderful to see the bonding between the volunteers, and it's intergenerational, it's intercultural. It's really beautiful, So just, people, seeing them as another face of Christ. That's really what we try to do here. And people will tell us, volunteers will tell us how they have changed themselves through being here. And, what they're hearing in the media is so unlike the stories that they hear here.
Yeah, I mean, that's the case with every story, is what you hear. And that's another reason why we're doing this, because in our own little world, we're trying to control our own narrative and say, hey, this is what we're doing. This is who we're connected with, and these are the real situations. You mentioned volunteers a few times, which is a beautiful segue because how do people, how can people get involved here prayerfully? What should they be praying for exactly? And then how can people get involved? They're sitting on their couch going, oh, wait a minute, maybe I could be of help in some way.
Sure. Well, on that very practical level, we have a website, and which has our phone number as well as a volunteer inquiry form, and we encourage people, if they're interested in volunteering, fill out that form. And we'll tell them about the various ways they can get involved here at the clinic. We'll get back to them. We have volunteer orientations on the average of every 4 to 6 weeks. Oh, wow. And in fact, we have one next week coming up. And so they get training, and then we'll put them on I'll say an experienced team so they can kind of get a sense of, the whole process. So that's a very practical way. Certainly, I think, I would call people, to think back, when we speak of the faith journey, and I know very often we speak of the journey of Jesus and saying Jesus himself was a refugee. Well, it goes even back before that. So we say people, pray on the scriptures there. Think back of all those scriptural stories of Abraham's migrant journey, of Isaac, Jacob. We look at Joseph thrown into slavery, in that migrant journey. I mean, our scriptures are filled with stories of migrants, and that is what our faith is based on. And so I think to recognize it is part of our faith journey. And if I could also just mention, there's a woman out there who's written so many beautiful books. One of them is called See No Stranger, a memoir and manifesto of revolutionary love, and is so much about the charism of the Sisters of St. Joseph, because she talks about how it is also not only a spiritual truth, but it is a fact increasingly verified by science that we are all a part of one another. Molecularly, in the dust, we are all a part of one another. And she says this beautiful line that I say so many times, you are a part of me I do not yet know. If everybody could see that, believe that, what a different world we would have. And I think that is breaking down those kind of barriers between us.
Now, before we go, I just, off the cuff, have a question for you. What has been a moment, and you could do this in a way that respects the confidentiality of folks, but is there one moment that jumps to mind that has stopped you in your tracks and made you go, oh, I need to be here?
Oh, gosh. There are so many moments. Probably the most touching ones are, and we've only had a handful, is, two aspects. When they finish their case, they're like so excited and joy, like, oh God, thank you. And even if you don't, know each other's language and can't communicate as well, it's like, that is just so beautiful. But even more beautiful, as I say, when we get the call, from New York City saying, I've won Asylum, and they're crying and we're crying. It's beautiful,
Well, this is really special, and this is only the surface. We could go on and on, but we really encourage you to check out the website for the clinic, Long Island Immigration Clinic. We'll have all that in our little show notes here. And we ask that you pray for the strength to be able to dive into this a little bit more, especially if it makes you uncomfortable, especially if it makes you confused. And look at all different angles of it and figure it out, and then take that and discern with that what you could do next. There's a lot of ways to get involved, and
and checks are good too.
Yeah,
donations are good too.
Yeah, that's always good. I mean,
and that can help. Transportation is such a big issue for folks out here. So for us to have Uber cards, that we can give them, to get to the clinic. There's so many, simple ways, that can help our dear neighbors in need. So
wonderful.
We thank you.
Thank you, Sister Janet, for the time here. Appreciate you opening the doors for us, and we'll throw it back to the studio for Sister Joan and myself to close it out. All right, peace. Well, thanks to the clinic for giving us that access and that ability to share their story and shed a light on what they're doing.
Yeah, and I would have to say that just a little over 2 years now that they've been in operation, and how many people they've helped, have seen, and then advocated for, and just the way they continue to grow as they listen and watch with the dear neighbor what the need is, and they're responding to it. It's just giving people hope and the help that they need.
That's beautiful. Well, thank you for being here with us, and we will see you next time.